안녕하세요. 본투비의 미국 영어입니다. 오늘은 시위 폭동 소요사태, 정부 대응에 대해서 공부해 보겠습니다.
Riots erupted in the city. Riots erupted in the city.
Violence erupted in LA amid protests over the death of Tom. Violence erupted in LA amid protests over the death of Tom. Hatred of authority runs deep. Hatred of authority runs deep. Protesters took to downtown San Diego streets. Protesters took to downtown San Diego streets.
Protesters poured into the streets. Protesters poured into the streets.
Hold rallies. Stage demonstrations. Hold rallies. Stage demonstrations.
Progressive civic groups held rallies Monday to protest the new policy. Progressive civic groups held rallies Monday to protest the new policy.
Many people staged a demonstration in Barcelona. Many people staged a demonstration in Barcelona. The protesters staged a 3 kilometers march. The protesters staged a 3 kilometers march. The governor imposed a 2-week nighttime curfew. The governor imposed a 2-week nighttime curfew.
The protesters ignored the government's plea for restraint. The protesters ignored the government's plea for restraint.
Tensions are rising. Tensions are mounting.
The government says it will deal sternly with illegal rallies in accordance with the law. The government says it will deal sternly with illegal rallies in accordance with the law.
Her speech provoked anger from the public. Her speech provoked anger from the public. The military will be deployed to curb the violence. The military will be deployed to curb the violence. His speech has inflamed the crisis further. His speech has inflamed the crisis further.
Peaceful protests turned violent overnight, with some looting and building satellites. Peaceful protests turned violent overnight, with some looting and building satellites. Riot police fired stun guns and rubber bullet guns into the crowd. Riot police fired stun guns and rubber bullet guns into the crowd. Authorities mobilized 10,000 riot and plainclothes police in the city. Authorities called in 10,000 riot and plainclothes police in the city. Authorities deployed 10,000 riot and plainclothes police in the city.
The protesters clashed with riot police. The protesters clashed with riot police. Riot police scuffled with protesters. Riot police scuffled with protesters. She scuffled with photographers as she left her hotel. She scuffled with photographers as she left her hotel.
Many people were injured by a hail of bricks and petrol bombs. Many people were injured by a hail of bricks and petrol bombs.
10 water cannon-equipped fire engines were dispatched. 10 water cannon-equipped fire engines were dispatched. Petrol bombs. Molotov cocktails. Petrol bombs. Molotov cocktails. Angry protesters set cars on fire and shower police with stones. Angry protesters set cars on fire and shower police with stones. The police posted a security cordon. The police placed a security cordon. The police drew a security cordon. A man broke a security cordon. A man broke a security cordon.
Police responded with tear gas. Police responded with tear gas. Shots were fired into the air. Shots were fired into the air.
Looters have rampaged through the streets. Looters have rampaged through the streets. Several stores were destroyed by rampaging looters. Several stores were destroyed by rampaging looters.
The protesters shrugged off the threat of arrest. The protesters shrugged off the threat of arrest.
The protesters defied the threat of arrest. The protesters defied the threat of arrest.
They defied tear gas, warning shots, and bid on charges. They defied tear gas, warning shots, and bid on charges.
Police made 10 arrests. Police made 10 arrests. Jeff was arrested for public order offenses. Jeff was arrested for public order offenses. The police hauled away 10 protesters. The police hauled away 10 protesters. Two protesters were taken away in a police car. Two protesters were taken away in a police car. The socialist group will rise up against its regime. The socialist group will rise up against its regime. They demand the ousting of the administration. They demand the ousting of the administration.
They attempt to overthrow the government. They attempt to overthrow the government. They plot to overthrow the government. They plot to overthrow the government.
The riots plunged the country into chaos. The riots plunged the country into chaos. United States descends into chaos as clashes between protesters and police escalate. United States descends into chaos as clashes between protesters and police escalate. The government declared martial law. The government declared martial law.
The social unrest will place this country under martial law. The social unrest will place this country under martial law.
Journalists are barred from covering the protests. Journalists are barred from covering the protests. They put the opposition leader Kim Enderhouse arrest. They put the opposition leader Kim Enderhouse arrest.
Soldiers were sent to suppress the riot. Soldiers were sent to suppress the riot.
Soldiers were sent to quell the riot. Soldiers were sent to quell the riot.
Soldiers were sent to put down the riot. Soldiers were sent to put down the riot. Protesters near White House dispersed with tear gas. Protesters near White House dispersed with tear gas.
The army quickly crushed the revolt. The army quickly crushed the revolt.
The police crushed a student-led uprising. The police crushed a student-led uprising.
The demonstrations finally subsided. The demonstrations finally subsided.